Howdy doody, my name is Susie, and today I thought I would share with you how I'm making a cornucopia to hang from my door as opposed to a wreath. I'm also going to be making a cornucopia that you can lay on your table as an arrangement. So for this, we're going to need a few materials. We're going to need some chicken wire to create the structure of the cornucopia, and I'm going to take you out in a minute and show you the size to cut, how to shape it. We're going to need a pool noodle. We're going to need a coat hanger. We're going to need some glue sticks, a little bit of tape, some zip ties. We're going to need an X-Acto knife, some scissors, and we're going to need some pliers. We're also, of course, going to need our flowers that will fill our cornucopia, some sticky tape, and we're going to need our external material. I've got burlap in a ribbon. I've got burlap as a sheet. And I've also got coconut fiber. And I have some string. And depending on what you're doing, I've also got some 18 gauge wire where I'm going to create these little pins. If you're using the coconut fiber in order to secure it to the chicken wire or the cornucopia structure, and this is all dependent on what it is and how you create your cornucopia and for what purpose. And then if we're using it for the door, we're going to need two, these are removable hooks. This one's for 5 pounds, this one's for 3 pounds. We're going to use two of them because we're going to use one on top to hang the cornucopia. We're going to use one on the bottom to secure the base of the cornucopia. So if it's hanging from your door, it's not going to swing with wind. So the first thing that we're going to do, some gloves because we're going to be working with the chicken wire just to protect your hands. And some wire cutters. So let me take you outside and I'm going to start by cutting the chicken wire. So for the door cornucopia, I basically squared off my chicken wire, and this is it's 24 inches wide. So I cut it a square. That's 24 inches. This was the for the cornucopia for my front door, 24 inches. And my table one, I'm going to make it 18 inches. I've got 18 inches. I'm just going to pick spot. So now we've got our 18 by 18 inch square, and I'm going to turn it into a diamond, and I'm going to wrap halfway in on one side, halfway in on the other side, and essentially I have a cone. And I'm going to make use of all those little cut wires to hold my mesh together where I'm overlapping it. So now I feel that that's secure enough, and I have pushed it down a little to flatten it because I want to create a flat spot on the base where it's going to sit on, in this case on my table, or you want it to be fairly flat because it's going to be up against the door. So now you've got your shape, this extra part, I'm just going to turn it in. So essentially you're looking for something like this, where the back is higher than the front. If you can see that, the back is higher than the front. So this is going to be the way it's laying on our door, or this is the way that it's laying on our table. And now with this, and this is quite easy to conform, but what we want to do is, if you're making this for the door, you want to turn your cornucopia tail to the side so it goes this way, so it lies flat on the door. But if you're going to be doing it on your table, you want to bring the cornucopia tail up. So in either way, you can shrink and conform cornucopia quite easily. So this is what I'm doing for the table. So I want the cornucopia tail to go up. This. As you can see, the tail is pointing up, and this is going to be my flat part, and my flowers will be coming out of here, and this will all be covered with whatever material I choose to do so. So here I've got my two cornucopias. This one is my square 24 by 24 inches, and I've shaped my cornucopia and I've turned the tail to the side because this is laying flat on the door. Whereas the one I made that's 18 inches, which is going on my table, I've turned the tail up because I want this to be sitting on my table. This is going to be part of the design. The flowers will spill onto the table that way, whereas this one is going to lay flat on the door and the flowers will spill out that way. So now that we've got our wire cage shape, the next step, if we're going to be making this for our door, which I've got my wire mesh here that's going to be, I'm going to be making this for my door. I'm just taking a regular hanger, clothes hanger, and this is just from the dry cleaners. So the wire is quite malleable, and we're just going to conform it. We're going to pull it and conform it into this shape. I'm just rounding off the top. We're going to leave the part at the bottom pointy, and then we're going to conform the top of the hanger in order to create a loop. So we want to take our hanger and we want to get this. So if I overlap the two, you can see that I'm going to have to bend this. So I'm going to just take my pliers, and I'm just going to come up a little ways, and I'm going to bend the hanger like this. And then from here, I'm going to take it and I'm going to bend it the other way. So I've got that about here, and I'm going to bend it in. That loop is going to be centered, so it hooks like this. So I just took my string and I just kind of wrapped it around the frame. And I only need it to come down here. And I took that measurement and I just tripled it. So you can glue or just tie off your string like this. Just tied it off. And then I just wrapped it around. And then I could just tie it off and cut that extra string so it's all nicely done. See? So you can see how I've inserted this inside the wire mesh. Here's the bottom of the point. So if I turn it around on the back, all I've done is I've just taken zip ties and just secured it to the wire all the way along. including the bottom. And then at the bottom, I added one extra zip tie, and I looped another zip tie, which I'm not going to lock. I'm leaving it as long as possible. See, I've cleaned it up by removing all those little tips of the zip tie, but I've left my loop at the bottom, which is this is going to be secured to the door. So now I've got my cornucopia and I have my hanger secured on the inside, which is going to give me some structure and also give me a flat surface up against the door. Now you're going to want to hang it because when you're filling it up with your flowers, you want to make sure that it's balanced. So the next thing that I'm going to do, and I've lowered the front so it's scooped in the front. And the next thing I'm going to do, the old pool noodle. I'm going to insert the pool noodle like such, and I'm going to cut it just below the opening. So I'm just going to cut it. So I'm just cutting it like this, just below the opening, not all the way up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it down. So I want the pool noodle to be like this. So it gives me flexibility when I put my flowers in. The other thing I'm going to do is I need to cover up the hole. I've got a little plastic lid, but you can use anything, a little plastic lid. So I've got my super sticky tape. I keep it in wax paper so that it doesn't stick to anything and it stays fresh. I'm going to take the bottom of the pool noodle and I'm just adding a plastic lid. And I'm just going to tape it on. So now I've just sealed off the bottom of my pool noodle so the flowers don't poke through. And then I've got the top, which I've just cut open. This will allow the flowers, the bouquet, to fit in here. I'm going to take my noodle and I'm going to measure 2 more lengths. So now I'm just going to draw a line across. I want a little bit of pool noodle there and a little bit equal amount there. A line across, and I cut my noodle like this. So now I've got 2 parts that are pointy. So you can see that that point fits very nicely down either side of the center pool noodle. We've got more places to place flowers, and I'm just going to gently push those in place to insert flowers anywhere that I want. So the center pool noodle that I've sliced is the one that I'm going to be inserting the majority of my flowers in the center, but I can also insert flowers on the exterior if I want. So you can see, you can insert your flowers very easily and they will hold. So now I want to wrap the exterior of the cornucopia. I'm going to make sure that I don't wrap up this loop because this is what's going to be hanging from the door. And of course you would be doing the same thing if you were doing your cornucopia for the table. So here's my cornucopia. And all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start off on a bit of an angle, like so. And I'm just going to start wrapping around the cornucopia. So I'm going to be wrapping it. And on the back, I'm just going to fold it over like so, making sure to leave this. And then I'm going to continue wrapping around. When I get to the back, I just twist it like so. And then I can continue wrapping it in the front until I've got enough material to wrap it all the way around. And I'm just going to cut it here. And then with the glue, I'm going to go around and just tidy up my edge. So now I've got everything wrapped the way I like it, but I'm going to have to be able to secure this so the burlap doesn't move. So now's the time that I'm going to come in with my glue gun, and I'm just going to add glue underneath, and I'm just going to secure it so that it doesn't unravel. Now I'm going to start with the front, and I'm just going to tidy everything up. I'm going to just add glue just underneath all of the little seams going up. And I want to make sure it looks really good in the front. Just want to, you can see the glue holds that little seam in place. You can see that it's glued here. So I like to work from the front first because I can really make sure that it lays out exactly the way that I wanted to, nicely. And then once I've got all the front done, then I'll start working on the back. So now I've got the back all glued, and I've got my little brace. So you can see it glues onto itself pretty well. You just have to add a bead of glue and just press it together. The glue goes right through the mesh so that you can create a nice, neat edge. So there you go. So I finished off the edge, so that looks nice and neat. I've just folded it over. Of course, you've got the pool noodles inside, and we've got our cornucopia, and we've got our hook for the base. Now for some cornucopias, if you were using, say, a sheet of the burlap, then you may want to use some string. Glue the string on the bottom, and then wrap your cornucopia. So if you wanted to secure it with string, you certainly could by just wrapping the string around it, and it's almost camouflaged. So now I've got my cornucopia covered, and of course this is going under a covered porch. It's not going to be outside where it can get soaking wet because this is burlap, and it will get wet even though the inside is the pool noodles. The other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we're going to do our arrangement while it's hanging, because we want to make sure that the cornucopia is balanced. Not only the look of it is balanced, but the actual cornucopia is going to continue to keep its shape and stay in this direction. So I've got my pool noodles. I'm going to start off with my longest pieces, and I'm adding them to the middle pool noodle where I've made all the little cuts, because I want this centered. Again, I'm using the middle noodle, but you can use any noodles that you want. I mean, of course, this is up to you, whatever it is that you like. And I'm trying to position the flowers in the center pool noodle because I want the weight to be in the back, not the front. And then I've just got like a whole bouquet. I could separate this, or I'm going to bend the flowers forward. And there you go. I think it's a nice balance. And of course you do whatever it is that you like. And you want to try and keep the flowers a little compact so they're not really blowing that much. So I'm going to be using my removable hooks. And like I said, this is for 5 pounds. This is for 3 pounds. I'm going to need the large one for the top. And I'm going to need the small one for the bottom. But the bottom one I'm going to turn upside down. So now we're at the front door. We're going to want to measure, make sure we're getting it in the middle of the door. I'm just taking a little piece of tape with a marker, and I'm going to mark the center of the door. And I'm just going to hold it by the little loop, and I want to see what looks nice, and I think it looks great right there. So I'm going to want my hook to be here. You have to clean with alcohol the area that you're going to glue. I've got it centered. So I've added the loop and I've also tightened that zip tie. I'll snip this off. So I've hooked that hook, it's not glued yet, into that zip tie, and I'm just going to position it the way I like. So I'm just going to let it hang for now and make sure that it's the way that I like. So I'm just going to make sure it's level. Now I'm going to remove the cornucopia. I'm going to glue this on, and I'll be able to tighten this zip tie after I glue this onto the door to make it taut. And now when we come to the back, you can see we're just going to feed our loop through, and now I'm just going to tighten it. So you can see it is now taut and it will not move from here. And I'm going to trim this off. Our cornucopia, you can see it's very secure to the door. It's not going anywhere because it's secured down here as well as up here. And I think that looks really cute. So I really like my arrangement. I think it turned out great. Plus I can remove the flowers depending on the season and switch it out because nothing is glued in permanently. So if you try this and you like it, I hope you share it. Until next time, happy crafting.